Really taking that farmyard postpartum mum chic to new levels today. Blanky. It's fucking cold. Today I want to have a wee chat. Does chat mean, I don't know if chat's the right word. I want to have a wee moan about breastfeeding. So I just want to say that I'm not anti-breastfeeding and I'm not pro-breastfeeding. I am just, here's what happened to me that maybe I didn't think would happen, or didn't know that happened to loads of other people. And maybe we should just say that's what happened, and it happens. I've seen happening a lot there. I breastfed both my babies. I had a girl and a boy, and I breastfed my girl for, I think she was 8 or 9 months exclusively. Well, she had some bottles, don't actually really remember. And I breastfed my son for 9 months and 6 days. And I remember that exactly because I was fucking heartbroken when it stopped. And he was exclusive up until, I don't know, he got like a bottle a day. I can't remember exactly, but let's just say for both they were pretty much exclusive, other than maybe a bottle a day or when they went somewhere or whatever. I wasn't one of the mums that pumped and stockpiled tit milk. Just didn't work for me, didn't want to do it, just didn't do that. With my first, I had postnatal depression, which, you know, is going to taint a wee bit of a breastfeeding journey there. It made it, well, I think it actually made my breastfeeding or contributed greatly to my postnatal depression, because I was sleep deprived, I was really stressed, I was really sore. I didn't enjoy breastfeeding with my first, although I persevered and did it for, I can't believe, 8 or 9 months, whatever it was. And then when I had my second, I knew I wanted to breastfeed. I was adamant I was going to breastfeed, because for the first time I breastfed, it was brutal. And I wanted to be like all the other mothers out there that said they loved breastfeeding and had a great time and a wonderful bond, and it was so magical, and rainbows and unicorns jumped out when they got their tits out. And I thought, I want some of that. How do I get some of that? I'll breastfeed again. I wrote a blog about breastfeeding and what you would need to breastfeed, and basically what it was saying is you just need to be really honest, and let's just say how it actually is. So you'll read a lot of stuff about breastfeeding, and it's like, you know, if you've got the perfect latch, it won't hurt. If you've got the perfect hold, it won't hurt. Mum and baby both need to learn, and there's an adjustment period, and you know, things can be difficult or whatever. And I just feel like it doesn't really encompass what breastfeeding, or establishing breastfeeding is like. Let's not just say the entirety of breastfeeding is shit. That's maybe a bit harsh, but when you're establishing breastfeeding, especially as a new mum, that can be intense. Everyone will tell you that if you've got the perfect latch, feeding shouldn't hurt. Now, of course, breastfeeding is natural, but it's not entirely instinctual. Well, it is to a degree. Your baby will sniff out your boobs in your milk, and you see all these amazing videos and stuff, but it doesn't mean that it becomes easy or natural to a mum. You know, you fret and how you hold the baby and the latch. All you hear is latch, 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 latch. That's all you're going to hear. And about the perfect latch. Well, I'll tell you, my daughter had a perfect latch, and that still hurt. It's going to hurt. You're putting, you know, I don't know and I don't judge, but my nipples never seen that much sucking, biting, pulling, engorgement action before I had the baby. So they kind of weren't used to it. So then when I put my daughter on, they had to go through a transition period of just being attacked for hours on end, days on end, weeks on end. Like, I got red nipples, I got cracked nipples. I didn't get any infections. Well, I got thrush in both breasts, which meant my daughter had thrush. That was really painful and really hot. Got let off relatively easy compared to most people that breastfeed, but it was still horrific and it was still painful. Adjusting to someone sucking on them what feels like 24/7. You know, your boobs need to go through a rite of passage. You know, it's going to be painful. And people need to understand that it can be painful for a lot of women. Nothing to do with this magical perfect latch that will soothe everything. Because if you have a baby like mine, she ate a lot. I remember going for a shower when my baby was like really young, my daughter was really young, and I'd be in the shower and I'd have to put it on my back so it would go down my back, because on my boobs, which are like down here somewhere apparently, it was just excruciating, and even trying to dry it was excruciating. It was so painful because they were so red raw and so abused because she was on them all the time, which was maybe some of my fault, because I just, you know, if my baby cried, I put her on my boob, which, you know, probably wasn't the best idea because I don't think she was always hungry. But I was a new mum, didn't know what I was doing, so I just thought a boob cured everything and gave her it, and it hurt. There would be some times where I would be, you know, feeding with clenched fists and I'd just be in so much pain and just like sobbing and really upset that it hurt so much and that I was doing something wrong, or it could be better, or, you know, because no one told me that they would be crying during the night trying to feed the baby. I just thought it was this magical bonding experience between mother and child that, you know, was great. And while you're trying to establish breastfeeding, a lot of babies feed every 3-4 hours, some babies feed every 2 hours, some babies feed every 5 hours or whatever. But while you're doing that, and if you're exclusively breastfeeding, then you are on demand for that whole time. You'll be the one feeding during the night, you'll be the one feeding during the day, you'll be the one just feeding the baby, and that can be mentally exhausting and mentally draining, being the one solely there to feed the baby. And I don't even mean just like in a physical sense and as you're, you know, healing from childbirth. I mean in the mental sense of, oh, that baby's awake. I used to get like that fear that if I put my baby down and they woke up, like, oh my god, they want me, they want me, they want me. Like, it was, I found it really stressful. You'd go for a shower and all you'd hear is, oh, he's awake, and I'd be like, oh my god, right, I'm coming, you know, he wants a feed, because apparently I just make really hungry babies that just want to be fed all the time. So the mental toll of breastfeeding for me was the worst thing, and I was always worrying or fretting. So if, you know, they had a dirty nappy or a sore stomach or they were crying, I was like, it must be something I ate, it must be something I've done. Maybe I've had too much dairy, maybe I've had chocolate, maybe I shouldn't add that spicy curry. You know, you worry and you fret about everything that you're putting in your body and how that's going to break your baby. It can be really draining. And when I reached a breaking point, if my partner says, do you want me to feed them bottle or do you want me to get them milk, then it would really upset me. And I remember being in the shower crying and being like, am I not good enough? Is my milk not good enough? Am I doing something wrong? And he's like, it's not what it means. It just means I want to give you a break. It just means I want you to go for a shower or go for a nap or do something that you want to do. Just nothing about you or your milk. But I would always take that as I'm not doing enough, or I was feeling in some kind of way because I didn't pump. I hated pumping. I hated pumping breast milk. Like, I just hated it. You would just sit there being milked for like ages, and you'd produce a little bit of milk and you'd be like, that's not enough. Is that what he's getting? Is that what they're feeding? And then I learned that when you express or when you pump, you necessarily don't make the same amount as what your baby would get. But I didn't know that. So I got really stressed about that and trying to provide this liquid gold that heals all and is the best for baby. Now, breast milk is the best for your baby. There's no denying that breast milk is the best thing that you can give to your child. It is tailored for them. It's full of everything they need. Tailored for them when they get sick, it changes. When they're grown, it changes. It is the best liquid you can feed your baby. However, that does not mean that it is best for mum and best for baby, because the cost of making this milk is astronomical for some people like myself. It wasn't best for my baby, especially my daughter, to be fed my breast milk, because the toll it took on me exacerbated my postnatal depression. There was no way that balanced out the nutritional aspect of giving her this breast milk. Like, she may have got the best in terms of nutrition, but she didn't necessarily get the best in terms of her mum, because she couldn't possibly, because I was ill. She was looked after, she was cared for, but it doesn't mean that it outweighed what I was going through and how I snapped at her and how I moaned and, you know, all that stuff that went on with postnatal. It doesn't mean that breast is best, because when you say breast is best, you're taking out the mother, you're taking out the breast, you know, you're taking out the total of what it means to give your baby breast milk for a lot of people. So when I first, I had a really bad experience with cracked nipples, thrush, just being in pain, establishing, changing my boobs from like my boobs to mum boobs. That was wild. But with my son, it was easy because they were already broken in. You know, they had been used and abused. They were good to go. I knew how to do it. I knew how to hold the baby, although I was quite nervous when I had him and I gave birth and I brought him up to me and I was like, I actually don't know what I'm doing. What's the latch? How do you do this again? Like nose to where? Nipple? I don't know. But it was really, I had more confidence the second time. My boobs were hardened, you know, you can literally stamp on my nipple and I won't feel it. But with my son, it took maybe a week or two. My boobs were a wee bit sore. I had a bit of nipple cream. No leaking. I remember it leaked a lot with my daughter. I was having pads on all the time and my boobs just seemed to like want to spurt milk out whenever they could. But with my son, it wasn't like that. They were kind of just like, ugh, can't be bothered spurting milk out. Just take it. Let's take it. And they were kind of, they really just slipped back into breastfeeding really easy. It was a wee bit painful. Not so much, you know, I wasn't sitting there like wincing in pain. Well, I was wincing in pain with my son because of the contractions in my uterus. Oh my god, they were next level. I didn't get that with my first. And I was reading that these contractions can be worse with every subsequent child. We're not having any more. When he was feeding, the contractions were like, wow, nothing I've ever felt before. That it was really hot, intense, you know, toe curling, like, I just can't describe it. Like, it was really painful for maybe, I don't know, a week or two, you know, when he was latching on. Like, the latch was okay. It probably took my mind off the fucking latch, to be fair, because when he was on, my whole body was like, oh, I don't know what it was doing. It was doing some mad shit down there, and that was excruciating. That was really painful. I didn't expect that to happen. I remember the first night in the hospital feeding him, and I was just like, wowzers, we need to get some painkillers for this. That was insane. But by the second baby, 4.5 years down the line, my boobs were used to it, they were fine, they were physically okay, but the mental toll of breastfeeding again still really took me back, and I still found it really hard to be the sole person feeding, to dread hearing that baby crying, you know, getting up during the night, changing the nappies, putting them on when you just want to sleep. It was still really hard mentally. But I knew the next time that it didn't last forever. Cluster feeding happens. It's okay. Just fire them on a boob and sit and watch TV. You'll be alright. You don't need to sit and stroke them or bond with them and do all that shite. You can sit on your phone and just scroll and talk shite to your pals or your kids feeding. Job done. Also at night time, you just whip a boob out. It's really easy. Like, there's extreme positives to breastfeeding, and I would do it again. I would do it all day long if I thought I was having more children, which I'm not, because babies are the worst. But I would breastfeed again, even though I'm just not a fan of it. It's the lesser of two evils to me, and I would do it. There's just a few things about breastfeeding that we need to be quite honest about. It hurts. Establishing breastfeeding can be quite painful for loads of reasons. 2, it can contribute to postnatal depression, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't breastfeed if you're worried about postnatal depression, but we need to be honest about the mental toll that breastfeeding takes on our mother and the family. So you'll see lots of things saying it can prevent it or lessen it, and I don't argue with that. I think that's true, but there's also another side of it, that it's really stressful, and some people like myself will just not take to it so easily, and it will damage their mental health. That is a fact also. Breastfeeding would be amazing if all women were equal in it, if all women could produce milk and it didn't hurt, and we didn't have other roles, we didn't have to go to work, we didn't have other children, we didn't have chores or whatever, it would be amazing and ideal if we all lived in a cave and all we could get to do was just sit and breastfeed all day, and we had someone right beside us, patting us on the back, going, "You're doing amazing, this is okay, it might hurt a wee bit, it's okay, you'll get through it, this isn't forever." That's when I would be like, yeah, breast is best. In the ideal situation with the ideal support, then yeah, breast is best. But for a lot of people, we don't have support. The information out there can be extremely one-sided about latches and holds and, oh, I don't know, how it's so amazing and all these chemicals that are released, and yeah, that's true. But there's also mums out there screaming while their kid latches on because their nipples have just been ravished, and she doesn't want to hear about the feel-good hormones right now. She wants to know that it's okay for it to be sore, and this moment will pass. And do you know what? You don't even need to do it if you don't want to do it. It's all right. It doesn't mean that you're a bad mum. It doesn't mean you're failing. It just means that breastfeeding is woofty hard, and you just don't need to do it. If you don't want to do it, you know, be fine. So I had 2 babies. One with postnatal depression. I had postnatal depression. The baby didn't. She was happy as. And breastfeeding was tainted me for a long time. It was hard. For all the reasons it was hard. And when she finished, it was kind of a mutual agreement. Just like one night I knew it was the last feed and I was like, thank fuck for that, like, get to. And it was fine, and she was fine, she didn't care either. And then I had my son, and breastfeeding was that really nice time that I didn't want to end, and I was really upset and I cried for about 2 weeks when he stopped feeding. I knew it was coming, he just wasn't latching properly, he was just favouring the bottle more because we were trying to introduce a bottle because my partner wanted to feed and I didn't want the stress of having him on me all the time. I was nervous that he wouldn't take a bottle and I'd be trapped with this kid all the time, and even though I liked it, it was still really stressful. And I wanted to be free to do stuff in the evenings, and I wasn't pumping milk because it just wasn't working for my boobs, it just wasn't doing it. So, you know, things happened. He kind of just started to, when I got my period, he started to be really fussy with my boob, and I never understood it. It's probably a thing, but you get really fussy and he would refuse and hurt me and just be really annoying, and I would get frustrated and he'd get frustrated, and I was also concerned he wasn't eating enough because, you know, this is what I mean, it's the mental toll of breastfeeding. You don't know what they're getting, you can't see what they're getting. I always question it, I always worry, probably my issue, not his. I knew it was coming that night. I took him up to feed, he took a wee bit, it kind of messed about, bit me because he had 4 teeth by this point. And I was like, that's us, and I put him in, and I got really upset when I put him to bed, and I was holding him and I was in tears, and I put him down for his night, and I was like, that is the last time we will breastfeed, that's the last time I'll ever breastfeed. And it broke my heart for like 2 weeks. It was really painful. It was the complete opposite of my first. I would have done it until he was like 45, probably not 45, but definitely toddler age. I would have kept going as much as I could. So it was just 2 different experiences. One was really rough, one was really good, but my main opinion of breastfeeding is, if you want to do it, but know what you're getting into, know what it can be, know that it's okay that it will hurt, or to establish it, it can be painful and a really turbulent time, and there'll be a lot of emotions going on and maybe anxieties. Some people just take it and it's fine, you know, some people just take to breastfeeding and they don't worry, and you know, it doesn't necessarily hurt. I've not met a single person like that, but I believe they're out there. I just wish I knew that it would hurt, and not just the joking hurt that people say, put like cabbage leaves on them, you know, or just like keep slapping nipple cream on them, because even nipple cream, man, they should put like a lidocaine or something in nipple cream. Probably hurt your baby, but you know, it can be really taxing. And you might not feel that magical bond. You might feel really hard done by, you know, like I was. I felt really like, I'm going through all this for what? For that kid? Outrageous. It's just not always painted the picture how it is in the TV or whatever, or online or whatever. These magical mums holding filtered at their nuts. Like, just not always like that. It can be, and it can be really nice. I know that because I've had my son and I've experienced it. Again, didn't get that huge, massive, loving bond. I just liked to feed him more than I like to feed my daughter, which is nice. It was a better experience. I can't say there was anything magical coming from it, but I just did it and I would do it again. So if you're going to do it, just know that it can be shit, and that's natural and normal too. It's not all the magical rainbow fairy shite that you see or hear. Just expect that your tits are going to get beat up for a wee while. And it might be painful to establish, and you might need nipple shields, or you might just want to express and give your nipples a wee bit of rest for a day or two. It's fine. It's not a big deal. There's a lot of things flying into breastfeeding that maybe aren't reported or not taken into account. It's just good to talk about that and remember that can happen, and that your poor titties are going to go through their own motherhood ride, and you've got to be there to support them. Get some brads. Or not. I didn't opt for any brads in my second. No need for that. Let them out. Let them be free. Don't come to my house if you don't want to see nipple. With my son, they were just out. Like, I was so over it. I don't care. Like, Postie came, here's a nipple. Pizza man came, here's a nipple. Kids come down the stair, here's a nipple. Like, nipples, just do it all the time. Sitting there with my tits out. So over it the second time. Much easier the second time, but again, that's something you have to go over and have to get used to. If you are a shy person like me that don't necessarily get your nipples out all the time and feel a wee bit shy about doing it in Costa, you know, each to their own. Some people are fine. I wasn't. So that was another element of like shit that I had to go through to get into breastfeeding. To sum that up, breastfeeding can be a bit shit. It can be a bit good. It's something that I'm really glad I've done. And I would do it again and again and again, but it was brutal. It was hard to establish, and I didn't ever get the magical bond with either of my kids. I mean, I liked it, but there's not a moment that I go, oh, I remember looking at them and stroking them or whatever, you know. I didn't really get that. I just fed my babies and that was fucking that.